I like a lot is when he encounters a Buddha-like figure in it. And you expect sort of a vicious polemic against Buddhism, and you don't get one at all. Zarathustra leaves and says, that old man is very wise, talking about now this figure that is a trope or a metaphor for the Buddha within Zarathustra. He says, that old man is very wise. If I were into sleep, this is the way he understood Buddhism, if I were into sleep, which is how he understands the annihilation of the self and nirvana and stuff, he says, no one teaches sleep better than that old man. And if I were into it, see, if I were a person into sleep and being into sleepiness, nobody is a better teacher of that than him. And that's the famous book I've already referred to, where he ends by saying, blessed, in fact, are the sleepy, for they shall soon drop off. It's a nice, one of my favorite Nietzsche quotes. Blessed are the sleepy, for they shall soon drop off. Well, to return to the postmodern terrain, Buddhism, as we now know, along with many other religions, are antiquated in the face of a telecommunicational network which has more than replaced all the functions of traditional religion. More than replaced it, subjectively and objectively. And, I mean, Plato's cave, we don't need to see the shadows on the wall because the shadows are in our television, and we have televisions. It is a stupid strategy to think that you can turn them off. All that can happen is they can turn you off. You can't turn them off. Try to explain that remark, because many people around universities love to brag, I don't watch TV. Well, damn. Well, damn, that's historically crazy and unconscious. Don't you realize that's something like saying after the invention of the Gutenberg printing press and then later the availability of cheap printed material to go snottily around saying, well, I only read things handwritten in Latin. I don't read these new books off these printing presses. These paperbacks, to hell with them. They're the devil's things. I don't read those paperbacks. Well, that's how I feel about intellectuals. I don't watch movies. I don't watch TV. As if you could escape an entire world whose culture is being shaped by this, and the subjectivities of millions of what will be culture and objective spirit, shaped by these new instruments and new forces, as if one could escape it by turning a switch. That's why I say you can't turn off TV. It can turn you off, but you can't turn it off. You can't make it disappear, but it can make you disappear. I mean, it's just not that relation. Nietzsche, of course, when he talked about nihilism in The Last Man, had no idea that nihilism would be technologically achievable and that it would not upset people as much as he thought. That the death of human subjectivity, that the end of projects that are our own, and the turn towards projects invented, packaged for us, sometimes by machines and not even by human advertisers or whatever, but just simply packaged by machine, along demographic programs written up by other machines, that would become the new array of things that are supposed to give us meaning, is, as it were, beyond nihilism. You know, this is not a culture that believes in nothing. This is a culture that is rooted in the will to nothingness, in Nietzsche's sense, and at the same time is, in a certain sense, giddy about it. I mean, there's a certain giddiness to it that I don't want to deny. You know, a sort of giddy feeling that well, you know, if you took undergraduate philosophy and you read Descartes, you thought, oh, maybe an evil demon is fooling me all the time. And you just thought about it in Introduction to Philosophy class as a thought experiment that you might be wrong, and then you were going to, you know, regain your reason. But now the greater skepticism has arisen that this whole telecommunicational world is one giant consensual hallucination within which you, as a singularity, Bill, Bob, Susan, and so on, simply cannot find your way about at all. It's not an evil demon anymore that you just thought up. You look at the fabric of social reality and become skeptical about your everyday life and whether it has any meaning at all. And this is not some empty skepticism, you know, merely philosophical skepticism. It is quite general. Believe me, talk to your friends. Talk to people at gas stations, for God's sakes. Well, geez, I don't know what's going on anymore. It's so weird. The most standard phenomenological or descriptive remark about the current social terrain, to which I do believe Nietzsche pointed the way in his remarks, is haven't things gotten weird? Which isn't an analysis, but certainly points the way towards one, Things have gotten strange. I can explain why people take crack now instead of LSD. I can explain that using this view that things have gotten weird and that we have a postmodern trajectory. LSD is superfluous in the 90s. Reality itself is so twisted that it's a waste of time. Why would anyone take acid in this culture to try to twist your mind? Hell, just watch TV for a few months. You don't need that. You don't need acid anymore. It's just silly. It's just silly. It's a redundant drug. It's unnecessary in a culture like this one. It's a redundant drug. Now, crack, on the other hand, has a certain rationality to it from both the perspectives of the rulers and the ruled. For one thing, from the perspective of the rulers, the opium of the people, it turns out, is much better when it's real opium. So the opium of the people now is opium, and that's very copacetic for people who want to do crowd control. It's nice that the potentially rebellious crowds are stoned out of their minds, and crack does that. It doesn't give you this happy, I don't want to work, marijuana stuff. It's just out, okay? And that's good for the rulers. On the side of the ruled, the desperate, crack, unlike LSD, doesn't enhance or freakify anything. It just sort of nails your head out of things for a while. Sort of jacks you out of this consensual hallucination. It's vicious and it's an ugly drug. This is no argument. I'm trying to explain how drugs, this is an important Nietzschean point, because Nietzsche thinks that intoxication, and this, I try to make it fit, I think it does fit. Intoxication has always been an important part of cultures. Certainly American culture. As many of you know, I'm a smoker, and that was our first, big commodity in the New World. This isn't the first New World Order we've had. There have been other New World Orders before this one. Well, anyway, Zarathustra, how does it relate to intoxication? Well, Zarathustra is supposed to be an intoxicating dance with the creation of new meaning. The threat faced now that I'm trying to raise concerns the entire text of Nietzsche and the entire text of theorists, literary and otherwise, who still dream what perhaps now, and I'm not saying for sure, because this kind of theory can only be based on speculation, phenomenological description, and suspicion, and the little bits and pieces you pick up in your culture as you try to understand yourself. It is almost obvious that no coherent social theory could explain a situation like this one. Just seems, I think that's just obvious. I don't know. Other people may see it another way, but I don't. The prospects that Zarathustra, and this is what I'm raising now, the prospects that Zarathustra could become a mini-series, and I know who to cast. William Hurt would be great as Zarathustra. The reason is that William Hurt always plays the sort of intelligent types, So William Hurt would be great.